Welcome to Ruxballs and Oval Balls. We're back for episode 24 of the fans' favourite rugby podcast, hosted by the fans' favourite rugby podcast hosts. It's me, Dave, joined as ever by the ever-present Rory. Rory, say hello to the listener.
Hello, listener. Hello.
How are you, Rory?
I'm well, thank you, David. Yeah, I've desperately trying to refine my motivation to go back to the gym and continue my weight loss journey, and struggling with that final bit where I actually go back to the gym.
Yeah.
But that's still on the cards post-walk. But in the meantime, I've decided to watch rugby with friends and drink lots of beers, so at least I'm doing something completely counterintuitive.
Well, it's always good to do something that is going to completely support the idea of what you want to do in no way, shape or form, which is by ingesting lots of food and lots of alcohol.
I think if I create enough of a problem for myself, I'll have to react.
That seems sensible. All I'll say is I know a good gallstone guy when the inevitable happens, because that is a path I have well trodden. And look at me now, Rory.
When I need a gallstone guy, you'll be my first call.
But big news.
What about yourself?
There's a date in the diary for the gallstone surgery is now set, which is exciting.
Fantastic. When can we expect the big removal? The
big removal is 9th of July. So
cool.
Literally a month away. So
literally a month. Wow.
This is very
How are
exciting.
You feeling about it? This is obviously going under the knife. This is surgery. How do you feel?
I feel fine about that. I feel less fine about the 800-calorie diet I have to go on 2 weeks prior.
Yeah, that sounds really grim.
That's worse than the surgery part for me.
Yeah. And post-surgery, what does your recovery look like? How restrictive is it?
Post-surgery, the recovery should be relatively straightforward. I've been told it shouldn't be any more than 2 weeks out of work. And that's mainly down to the aftermath of kind of the anaesthesia and kind of pains you get associated with the keyhole surgery. The actual gallbladder and stuff like that should sort itself out quite quickly. But we'll see. We'll see on that one. There's loads of things that they tell you that could and may go wrong, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But in other news, I've now also got a chest injury. So I'm in the wars.
Excellent. And has this come from an attempt to get back to lifting a bit of tin and some muscles?
No. I think it's from getting out of bed too rigorously.
That'll do it.
Something like that. The doctor believes I have strained, pulled, torn, or something. The chondrules in my chest, which are the muscles that hold your ribs together, and it's really quite sore and painful. It's so much so I've had to step back from this week's touch rugby, so I haven't got any man versus fat touch rugby news for you all, which is a shame because it was a crunch match against the blue team today. But it's fine. Health sometimes needs to come first.
Ironically, when involved in a touch rugby tournament that is primarily focused on improving your health. Yeah.
Let's not dwell on that irony. Moving on from our particularly mundane banter this week, Rory. This particular podcast is going to be something special, Rory, because not only are we going to be going into the 2 games of the Premiership semi-finals,
of course,
but this is awards night for Ruxballs and Wolves. It's awards night, Rory. It's an exciting night.
I should have worn the tux.
I was considering wearing something nice, but then I realised I get sweaty wearing a t-shirt, so I'm not wearing a tux.
This is damp.
But before we get into that, breaking news in our rugby news section, Rory. Zander Fagerson is out of the Lions tour. We knew it was going to happen. It always happens on Lions tour. This has happened very early on. But Finlay Bealham is in his place, and on top of that, because of I believe Leinster getting to the URC final, we've also got Jamie George and Asher Opoku-Fijour called up for the Argentina game. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first and foremost, just heart goes out to Zander Fagerson because it's just must be so gutting to miss out on that basis, and it's always going to be a risk. So I really feel for him because he's such a good player. He was so good for Scotland in the Six Nations in particular. Philly Beelam's a very good replacement. I think he had a very good tournament, obviously with Toukakota being injured for the vast majority of it, and he shored up that side of the scrum really well. So I think he's a very, very capable replacement. One of the other things I've read is that Toukakota is a doubt, so it might be a need for another permanent tighthead replacement, which there are some good candidates out there. Obviously, Apoka Vajor in the training squad this week for
Is he front of the queue?
Well, maybe he is. I mean, the fact he's there, but that could also be because, I don't know, Joe Hayes is obviously preparing for a final. God, who would the other options be?
And that, Rory.
Not obvious, actually, is it?
That's the problem.
Maybe it is.
Depth at tighthead isn't great at the moment.
No. And he can cover both sides, I suppose, at a pinch. So, yeah, it'd be an interesting one. Glad to see Jamie George going back in there. I think he was in both our squads to go originally. So obviously we hope it doesn't happen at the expense of someone else. But should that happen, then I think Jamie's a very worthy tourist.
Well, yeah, I'd like to think he's front of the queue for a hooker for sure. Very deserving. But I can't wait for the Argentina game. Not long to wait now, Rory. So
no, we're nearly there, aren't we?
So listeners, Lions Tour is not far away. I know we're winding down the season. I know we're coming into the final of the Premiership. But the Lions Tour kicks off in 11 days? Something like that, the game against Argentina?
It's 20th, yeah.
Not that I'm counting. So yeah, very exciting. But that's rugby news for this week, Rory, because we got some serious stuff to get into. And we're going to start off with the Premiership semi-finals. And let's start off with the Friday night fixture at the Rec. Bath versus Bristol Bears. Rory, please give me your review.
What a game this was.
Oh.
What a game this was.
So good.
I hate to give props to any of our West Country rivals being a Gloucester fan, but my goodness, these two put on a real show on Friday.
They really did.
There's a lot to get into in the details of it, but it's that first half from Bristol was close to perfect. They put Bath under more pressure than I've seen them in the Premiership really all year. The physicality levels were amazing. I mean, I was watching this with a friend, and we're both particular Ellis Genge fans. And very early on, I mean, the look in his eyes as he walked out, but I mean, early into the match as well, he was on it.
He was fired up.
He had that real look in his eyes that he was determined not to lose. And I say, in that first half, I reckon, were it not for Guy Pepper in particular, I think Bristol come away from that first half not free and clear, but in a stronger position than they were. 'Cause I think it was 13-6 at half time.
Yeah, I think they would have come away with more points on the board if not for some excellent breakdown work.
Yeah, crucial turnovers just everywhere. He was an absolute nuisance. And actually, I do think he was the difference between Bath coming in at half time 10 points down and 25 points down, because I do think Bristol were that good on the ball. A big shout out to James Dunn, who's, it's not a star name, not an obvious star name, but in that first half he looked like Ebenet Sabeth, Maro Itoje and Tadberg just all rolled into one. He was phenomenal.
And kudos to getting his first name right.
Yeah, well, fortunately I wrote it down.
There's a lesson
just
learned
to make sure. Yeah. If I just stop writing down surnames, I might remember first names. No, he was brilliant. His try, which was a lovely tip on from Ellis, actually, was such a good line. But he was just everywhere. He made a few breaks. Got his hands on the ball a lot. And with Joe Batley being the other lock there, you think he's, as he has been all season, be the kind of star man at lock for them. But James Dunn was the best lock on the pitch by some distance.
For me, James Dunn's one of those underrated players. He's been kind of flying under the radar for the last probably 2 years now. And he always does a really, really good job. And as you say, he probably has been outshone by Batley, who kind of steals the headlines for maybe a bit more frequently than Dunn, but Dunn gets a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff done and still has some of those moments as well to himself. So for Bristol to have those two, adding Pedro Rubiolo in onto that as well, that's quite the engine room they've got for next season. Yeah,
absolutely. And actually, just talking about his strike, can we talk about Ravouvou?
I have a feeling that name might be mentioned a few times this evening. Yes, let's talk about Ravouvou.
his sin bin aside, which, all right, is daft, but we've all wanted to kick a scrum half. That turn and burn from the kick through to just, he sent Will Muir flying with his feet there.
Yeah.
And, Will Muir's a good defender.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely sent him soaring.
Then dumpster trucked Ben Spencer.
Oh,
had a bit of everything that break. It was lovely.
Yeah. It was fantastic. And he was just lethal the whole game. And he looked like every time he was getting the ball, he was going to make something happen.
Between him and Bill Matter, like Fijian madness.
Phenomenal, the pair of them. And just, the size of them is one thing, because they're both, Ravouvou is basically the size of a number 8, and Bill Matter's the size of a big number 8. Yeah. So quite a handy pair to have on the pitch at the best of times. But the size is one thing, but the pace and the handling, Ravouvou in particular, but both of them, to be honest, was sensational. In the first half in particular, but actually in the second half, when Bristol were kind of weathered that 20-minute storm when Bath scored all the points.
Yeah.
Ravouvou still looked like the man who was going to try and get them back into the game. Yeah, I was just blown away by how good he was.
He is just one of those players that, given enough space, he is able to make a try out of nothing. And those players are generally quite few and far in between, but he's definitely one of them. And I think in the latter half of the season for me has outshone the other winger who's capable of doing that in the Bristol shirt, Ibitoy, who I thought was what's the word? He was well herded, I'd say.
Watched.
Yeah.
Well watched.
Well watched.
He had a good game. He had a good game.
They all had a good game. I think there's not a single player on that pitch who had a bad game, I'd say.
No, I think that's fair. What I would say with Ibitoy is he's kind of got this free roaming role in that team, right? Yeah. He doesn't stay on his wing, which generally speaking I would applaud from a winger, because I think going and looking for work is the difference between good and great wingers. Yeah. The ones that go and get their hands on the ball even more. In this game, though, I do think it left Bristol pretty exposed on that flank, because, in particular, just because Finn Russell's so good at finding the edge. Yeah. And the number of desperate covering tackles that poor Jan van Rensburg had to. So good again. So good, as he has been all season. But the number of times he was like scrabbling to try and catch Big Joe, who was, looking as monstrous as ever whenever he carried the ball. What a season he's having. He just looks a player transformed. I don't know that I can say enough about this game. I loved it. I loved watching it. It's one of the best games I've seen all season.
As a neutral, it was one of the most entertaining, gripping, enthralling games of rugby I'd watched for a long, long time at club level. The only shame was, and I say this purely because I want games to be close to keep that drama, the way Bath kind of ran away with it in that 20 minutes spoiled it a little bit, because it's like, okay, the inevitable's happened. Bath have just kind of stolen this tie. But even Bristol, they tried to stick in there and hang in there right to the last minute, which was so good. It was so good to watch.
They really pushed. Yeah. And you felt watching it, if Bristol could have clung on for that first 5-10 minutes of the second half, would the pressure have got to Bath? Because the pressure really got to them the first half. The pressure that Bristol put on the breakdown in particular. But, how often have you seen Bath get drawn into a scrappy, like, tap penalty, run it kind of game? They don't get drawn into it. Spencer and Finn Russell are very good at, taking the foot off the gas, slowing everything down, and doing things at their own pace. They were rattled. They got rattled in that first half.
They really were.
But the turnaround in the second half, you expect Bath to have a turnaround in the second half just because of the strength of their bench. That's not news to anyone. But that first 15 minutes in particular, Ted Hill, Thoukakota, Will Muir all scoring, and they were just so clinical with their opportunities. And then when Ajomo went over on about 59, you were like, it's a shame, because I think that probably is the game. They just swarmed them for 20 minutes. It was a real... it reminded me of, and this is a very high praise comparison, the great New Zealand sides of the 2010s.
Oh, you're going there.
Well, what I always found watching them is you'd have games, I remember watching...
I think I know what you mean, yeah.
Where you think for 30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, you think, we're well in this. We're putting them up to the sword a bit. We've got a good chance. And then they just go. Yeah. And then 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, they just run you completely ragged. And you're watching the teams going, just grasping at thin air. And you go, well, where did that come from? We were so good.
So it's like they find this hidden extra gear that no one knows about.
Yeah,
and it just it becomes unstoppable at times. It feels like teams like that, they're so powered and driven by momentum that once they get the wind in their sails, they almost it does feel like it's an unstoppable force.
Yeah,
and in that 20 minutes, it did feel that way. Like I didn't think Bristol had a way to stop that. Them, even if they had 16, 17 players on the pitch, the way Bath were playing in that window, I just don't think a team would have been able to handle it at all.
Yeah, it was just like pressure, penalty, corner, maul, power over, find the space, go over, and just rinse and repeat.
Was it the most exciting style of rugby? No, but that's kind of a very effective form of knockout rugby. And some of the tries were actually really nice as well, to be fair. But it was built on Jomo's try was lovely, but it was built off this really attritional, powerful pack, really drawing in the Bristol defence to make those gaps that wide. And that's
Miles Reid's making a big difference when he came on, didn't he?
What was the biggest point of difference? The injury to Harry Randall or the introduction of the Bath bench, namely someone like Miles Reid, who I thought was monumental?
Yeah. I would say, well, I mean, they've all had facts. I would say the loss of Harry Randall did stop Bristol being quite as effective in their attack, just because of the way he plays. And look, Kieran Marmion's a really good player, and actually, I think there have been several games this season where him coming on for Harry Randall was actually improved the way Bristol played.
Yeah, I agree.
But actually, it was one of those days where that kind of helter-skelter style that Harry Randall really pushes and really thrives in was what was putting Bath under pressure. And actually, when it became a little bit more structured, a little bit more predictable with Kieran Marmion there, Bath then really got a foothold in the game. But a close second is Miles Reid, who, I mean, maybe the most underrated player in the Premiership, but just, I mean, not if you're a Bath fan, they know. No. Superb. Absolutely superb. I think it was over 20 tackles in the second half. In one half.
It's insane. It's insane. He plays with this intensity that is consistent, and his ability to just be in the right place at the right time is exactly what you want from a back rower.
Yeah.
And the more you think about it, he has been like that for 2-3 years now in that Bath back row. Like he was there when they were kind of not table topping. Like he's been there for a while. I can't remember a single time I've heard his name in any discussion around potential England honours.
He's one of those where you wouldn't say he's necessarily got like a super strength in the same, like say, Alfie Barber is sheer power or Guy Pepper's breakdown work, but every facet of his game is brilliant. It's just there's no bit that's more brilliant than the other guy who's in that position.
Everything's great, but there's not one thing that's exceptional.
I think that would probably be how I'd describe it, which you get players like that, who are just all round really, really good solid players, but are never outstanding enough at any one thing to really push on for international honours. Because I think super strength is a big thing in international rugby in particular. But that being said, an absolute difference maker in this one. And I mean, it was a performance that if you were an international coach would make you sit up and watch.
Yeah,
you'd be thinking about it.
There'd be ink in the notebook.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, but as you know, Rory, I live in Bristol, and a lot of the cohort of my Man v Fat crowd are Bristol fans.
Sure.
And I feel like I wouldn't be doing them a service. And I want to say this isn't necessarily my view, but I don't think they'll think I'll be doing them a service if I didn't ask you what your opinions were of the refereeing performance by Christoph Ridley.
Well, first thing I'll say is Christoph Ridley has definitely been on the weights.
He was looking jacked.
Yeah. So first and foremost, well done you.
Bravo, Christoph.
I would say that, and I'm going to try and word this as well as I can. His first intervention was to give a penalty against Ellis Genge for
dissent.
But he wasn't showing any dissent towards the referee. He was dissenting an opposition player.
Yeah.
And I would say that kind of set the tone. My
initial reaction to that was think of the occasion, Christoph, because there's heightened emotions here. maybe that wasn't the time and place to be pulling that move in this game.
It was a bit of a I'm the biggest part of this occasion kind of refereeing move, which is not the type of reffing that I enjoy watching.
No.
And I think that did set the tone a little bit. Now, I don't think he had an objectively bad performance, and I don't think he affected the results by and large. But I would say he was over officious. Probably could have let a few things go more than he did. But that early penalty aside, I don't know that he had a wider effect on the result.
Okay. Bristol fans, I've addressed it. Rory's addressed it. We move on, because on this podcast we don't like to blame referees for results.
No, generally speaking, you shouldn't.
And let's not ignore the fact that Bath were the better team. Overall. But
look, Bath were the better team, and Bristol got held up over the line twice in that final quarter. If Ellis or Harry Thacker get the ball down, another one of those, then it's a different story and the momentum swings back to them. But the first half they were phenomenal, but Bristol probably needed to put a 20-point gap between them.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They didn't, and as I say, I think largely because Guy Pepper was just so phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think one of those, Kieran Donahue. We've talked about him before. First touch, 50-22.
Not bad for a kid that's played against you for dings.
I know. He came on and played 13 as well, I think.
Yeah, I did. So someone asked me whilst I was watching it, what position does he play? He's usually 10 or 15. It's like, but Finn Russell and de Glanville are still on. Oh, yeah. So he can play centre as well.
So, first, not to ask any questions, but did they need Chris Harris as a 1-year injury replacement then if Kieran Donahue could play 13? But I don't know.
Hey.
Louis Hennessy, I don't know. Whatever. But also, if he's got that kind of versatility and he's already having those kind of impact moments in Premiership semi-finals.
Yeah.
The conversation we had around the England squad.
If I'm honest, I would not be surprised to see him going to Argentina now. I really wouldn't.
Well, he's starting to look more realistic, isn't it?
What I'm saying is, I'm patting both of us on the back, Rory, saying we've done some excellent scouting work for Steve Borthwick, and he's living up to the potential that we've earmarked him for.
Finally. And if the RFU could start funding this podcast, I'll become a company man. I'll stop saying that you're doing a shit job.
Exactly. What did you make of some of the stuff in the media around this game from, namely, Pat Lam, and the reaction pre-game, and the reaction Van Graan post-game and things like that? Some of the war with words that were going around this game. I didn't pay too much attention to it personally, but I've seen a fair bit of it on the old socials. So I'm just wondering whether you've had it.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. I think a bit of media bite. I always look at this. You got to treat it like trash talking before boxing games. It's all just part of the entertainment and building up the narrative. Rugby shouldn't think it's above it, because ultimately at this level you're in the entertainment business. So I'm all right with it. It's not my bag, but neither is trash talking in boxing. I'd rather just watch the fight. But I fully appreciate that it comes as part of the territory, and if
that's big talk for the one that's labelled the controversial one out of the two of us on our socials.
yeah, well, yeah, true. I didn't say I wasn't a hypocrite. I think Pat Lam pulling the impoverished grassroots of the team owned by one of the wealthiest men in the country was a slightly interesting move.
It's an interesting take. I don't disagree, though, because the tickets at Bath are very expensive.
It's ludicrous. The prices are insane, and that should be addressed. There should be a little bit more uniformity across the league on that one, as far as I'm concerned. But, for the time being, people who live in Bath can afford it, like they can afford a lot of things. So, I suppose from that point of view, it's okay. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm quite happy for it to get a bit spiky off the pitch. I don't mind it. I want it to get more spiky on the pitch. The same reason I didn't like Christoph Ridley telling Ellis he couldn't have a pop at an opposition player, And he had a nice little pop at the fans as well when he came out, which I liked.
Yeah.
Had a little word. Someone must have shouted something, and he wasn't taking a backward step. In the same way as that, I think you should encourage them to be able to say what they want off the pitch. That's what creates fun media narratives. So I'm all here for it.
Yeah. I agree, Rory. I completely agree. Were there any other points on this game you wanted to go over? Because I agree that there's a lot we could talk about with this game, but we also have to respect the remainder of the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think well done to Bristol for what was a really good performance, and actually proving some of the doubters, of which we've probably been two of them, doubters wrong about some of their performances in the latter half of this season, and showing what they can do when they're at their best. But first and foremost, yeah, well done to Bath for making the final, because ultimately it's well deserved by them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Very well deserved by Bath. Great showing from Bristol. Both sets of players can come away heads held high. I'm sure the Bears will be kind of kicking themselves a little bit because at half-time they were kind of on the upper hand, but Bath were just too inevitable. But the game ended 34-20 to Bath, and they go strolling down the M4 to Twickenham to take on the winners of the second semi-final, Rory. And that second semi-final was between the Leicester Tigers and Sale Sharks. First of all, who wins in a fight, a tiger or a shark?
Is it on land or in water?
Well, it was raining, so...
Score draw?
Score draw. Okay. Rugby-wise, thoughts on this game?
Less obviously entertaining than the Friday night game. But no less engrossing. I mean, physical.
Very
physical.
Attritional.
And which we thought it might be.
Yeah.
I certainly thought it might be. It proved that way, but with some real moments of quality, which we'll get into. But this was won and lost on the physical battle. And Tigers outmuscled Sale, particularly in that first half, to a level I don't think I've seen anyone do, barring Toulouse this season.
It's not a sentence we've said often this year of X outmuscled Sale. It just hasn't happened.
No.
So kudos to the Tigers for coming up with that game plan and that motivation and being up for this fixture, because they brought it. I still think a big part of their turnaround this year, where they've gone from being a team that I really couldn't figure out to one that seems like really, really, at least kind of offensively minded, is from Dave Kidwell. That pickup when they replaced Everard. He seems to have brought a whole complete new mentality where you will not get past us no matter who you are. And that does seem to be ingrained in that team now.
It does. And look, I'm going to have to hold my hands up as someone who's pretty regularly criticised the way Tigers play this season. And I'm holding my hands up not to say that I was wrong from a stylistic standpoint, but from an end result standpoint, they have made a Premiership final. Yep. And you can't say fairer than that when it comes to assessing a team's abilities.
I was directly asked that question on TikTok today of whether we would address that point of how we have completely written them off all season, and yet they are in the final and finished second in the table. Fair point, well made. I would say it still wasn't the most imaginative style of rugby, but it was definitely effective.
This was won and lost on emotional energy, I think. It was won and lost on whose mentality was absolutely right on the day. And actually, Sale looked a bit off it, particularly in that first half.
They took a while to warm up, didn't they?
Really unusual for an Al Sanderson team not to be kind of emotionally there. But Tigers, whatever they did during the week to build up to that performance, I mean, they're going to have to do it again and then some in the final if they're going to beat Bath, I think. But they were absolutely on it from the first minute, really. There's some things to address in specific terms, but the Tigers' scrum absolutely dominating, barring one early penalty for Sale, I think.
Yeah.
And that Sale starting front row has been brilliant all season. They're all brilliant players, but Nicky Smith, Montoya and Hayes did an absolute job on them.
Yeah.
They
took that away as a weapon completely.
Yeah, 100%, particularly for Radwan's first try. The Tigers maul which was all before the Parise try, but it was good all day.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Sale struggle at the set piece for a while.
No, they had them at the line out. They had them at the scrum. I'd say it was odd.
And they were right on top of George Ford, which we said last week would be key to this.
Yeah, they forced George Ford to move out another defender or another attacker, so he was that one little bit further behind the gain line. Yeah. It's smart. They just put so much pressure on him so that he couldn't make any decisions in the time he needed. So he moved further down the line. So then they're giving up another 5 meters of space. He's more to the centre of the field. He's got less options. Like, it worked really well.
It worked incredibly well, and they kept him quieter than he's been for weeks.
And he still had some nice moments, but
he did, but not enough. No, I thought from a physical standpoint, Tigers were brilliant. And to be fair, I mean, Radwan's first try is a nice identification of space. It's a nice pass from Van Poorfleet and a little step inside, past 3 defenders and skinning another one to score. Lovely finish, very sort of.
So I got a question on that as well. Do you reckon that was identified on the training pitch, or was that just because to me it looked like Aaron Reid was doing a job of covering the sweeping defender, never thought to check back on his other wing? Do you reckon that's something that they've identified that Sale do, or was Aaron Reid just caught out?
I would probably say it's probably a bit of both, in that they've identified that Sale might have a propensity to sometimes overchase because they are a committed defensive team, and that does sometimes mean you get it wrong and you overchase the wrong way. But they've also, in that moment, you can see Radwan screaming for it. He's identified where all the space is back on the blind side of Van Poorfleet's hit him. And Sale have overchased to try and cover Radwan, which for a winger like that's bread and butter to get past. So they've probably said to Radwan in particular, keep your eyes peeled, because there's a chance that you could get some space here, but you got to execute it on the day when the opportunity comes, and they did.
Yeah.
It's a very good pass from Van Poorfleet. And that second pass, the second try is it's a shank from Pollard. Ultimately, big shin. I recognise it. That's how I kick the ball. All ankle and shin. But thumb finish, the Superman catch.
Yeah, it's a mixture of he's so fast that I don't think many other wingers would have even got close to that, let alone with a dive. The fact that he had the wherewithal to dive, catch, and place. Fair play. I bet he's really glad he made that move from Newcastle now.
Working out for him.
It's working out.
Yeah. He's doing very well though now, and I think I think Tigers will have things they need to do to get the most out of their attack, but they are certainly getting more adept at getting their wingers in the game, as demonstrated by the number of tries Haskell-Collins and Radwan have scored.
Yeah.
And, I think if you look for those wingers, you got a good chance to get some tries, because they're both brilliant. And actually, Haskell-Collins had a good game as well, if less opportunity to score.
I did enjoy the aerial battle that he was having with Roebuck. That was quite.
It was good, wasn't it? Yeah, and getting on top of Roebuck, who is a good aerial.
Yeah, they both had moments. They both had moments where they were kind of plucking the ball out of the air. But I do think Haskell-Collins probably had him on the day.
Yeah,
and then Roebuck, unfortunately, I think he came off with an injury because it didn't make sense at the time for him to be subbed off. So I'm guessing it was an injury. They did say on commentary that he did pick one up the week before, so maybe it was just a flare-up. But I thought that was an interesting battle. And again, it only strengthens that debate of what happens with Haskell-Collins in an international space, because
put his hand up. And Tigers won that aerial battle pretty much all day. They were the better aerial team, which is unusual because that is something that Sale are good at.
Yeah.
But Freddie Stewart and Haskell-Collins in particular,
very, very good.
Well, they're just so dangerous in the air, aren't they? Unfortunately, one player who didn't have such a good game was Rafi Quirk.
No,
which I'm pretty gutted by, because it's a guy that I really want to see hit his straps again. And
I kind of feel if he was on form, he could have been someone that turned that game from being the attritional style it turned into, because he has that game in him to be really expansive and exciting.
And he had some nice moments, but he just made some big mistakes.
Just some pretty strange decisions. I think it's that kick that just came, that kick that he done when Sale were actually in the ascendancy, and he just decided to aimlessly kick it away. Just a few things like that, a few dropped balls. It's just
he got hooked pretty soon after that kick, because I think by that point Aslan had enough.
And Gus War, like, things did look a lot better when War came on, I'd say. So not Quirk's finest game, but this won't be the last we hear of him. I'm certain of that. I'm
hoping not.
He's still got a lot to give. He's still quite young, and he still has potential, but it was not his game, and perhaps he was kind of feeling the effects of the added pressure on forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be fair. You know, the credit really just has to go to what the Tigers' effort, just the sheer physical effort they were putting in was the difference.
Yeah, that was the difference maker. The Tigers were just unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you think of the final tackle? The Stewart tackle on Cowan-Dickie?
I personally didn't see a great deal of arms being lifted, like the ref said. But I also think a lot of it was the fact that Cowan-Dickie stepped into Stewart, where the contact was probably a half second sooner than Stewart was anticipating. So I think Stewart had every intention of going for a legal tackle. But in the pictures that I was watching, I was struggling to see a wrap, personally. The referee saw something I didn't. And that's not me saying the ref's wrong. That's just me saying I'm struggling to see it myself.
Well, from what I saw, there's a reasonably generous inference from his left arm in particular travelling slightly upwards as if it's going to wrap.
Well, next time I get caught, I'll slightly move my arm upwards.
That's how I get away with all my transgressions. I don't think it was a penalty, though.
It would have been a shame if that was a decisive moment and changed to the result, because I don't think it would have. I don't think it was clear cut enough for it to be a penalty. But I can also see why Sale fans would be a little bit aggrieved.
Well, of course, because you want to have a chance to win, and Sale were in the ascendancy at that moment and could well have gone and scored a try. But he's low. He's not got for a high shot. No. He has hit Cowan-Dickie in the head, but only because of the dip.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's no part of me saying there was anything wrong that Freddie Stewart did. Like he was getting into a legal tackling position. I think that's why it was. It's just because he was getting into that position and Cowan-Dickie dipped and sidestepped into him and ducked his own head into Freddie Stewart's head.
Bit ironic there's Cowan-Dickie in it.
A little bit.
Okay. That man loves an illegal low chop.
Yeah. Because a poker for jour got done for a tackle at some point in the game as well, for tackling whilst off his feet.
Yeah.
And I was watching that for quite a lot of the game afterwards. It seems to be a bit of a tactic the Sale front row go for, is to kind of get as low to the shins as they possibly can on the tackle to stop the big men. So I wonder if that's something that the Leicester may have pointed to the referee, because it did look like a tactical decision.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it, but you can't go down to your knees first before you do it.
No, so whether he just got picked out timing-wise, I don't know. But
yeah. What Cowan-Dickie tends to do is just dive mid-air at someone's shins, which is arguably more dangerous for everyone.
Yeah, loves doing it on the goal line as well, doesn't he? Head first. You can't doubt the guy's commitment.
Oh yeah. He's a brave boy.
He's a brave old boy. But yeah, this game was very different to the first game. Much more of an arm wrestle. Much more. I won't necessarily say one for the purists, because there was still some lovely moments in the game, and it was still entertaining to watch. But it was a very different type of game for the viewer.
I did think. I bet it's a good day at Welford Road, apart from the rain.
Yeah, apart from the rain. I bet the Leicester fans had a lovely day. I bet they had a lovely day. And it was good to see quite a lot of Sale fans had travelled down for it as well. For a team that in the past has struggled to get attendances.
I think that was all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that game ended 21-16. So a lot closer. Sale nearly, if it wasn't for Freddie Stewart's slightly raised left arm, could have pulled it back, but Leicester have come out on top. So before we move on to the awards, Rory, who wins the final?
Bath.
So this is the only thing with Leicester winning this semi-final.
You think they've just got there's something in the DNA?
3 weeks ago, Bath ran riot on Leicester, really. And it wasn't even a full strength Bath against
No.
a full strength Leicester.
Yeah.
Unless they were deliberately holding something back, it does mean the final for me does feel a little bit... I'm a little less excited because I kind of feel like I already know the result.
Gut feel says, I mean, I'm going to be there. I'm looking forward to the day.
Oh, lovely.
But gut feel, it's going to be a slightly one-sided result. But
I think
it's a one-off game. It's a final. Tigers have proved that they've got another level of physicality. They are going to need
Very true.
it. They are going to need to take opportunities when they get them, because I think they will carve out less than Bristol did against Bath.
True.
So
very true.
they're
But
going to need to be absolutely accurate.
so what we did see from this weekend is that Leicester do have that physicality, and I think that is something that if they can impose that on Bath, it may make Bath panic like they did a little bit in the first half against Bristol, because that was built off of a lot of intensity from the Bristol team.
Yeah.
So if Leicester can bring that, maybe, I'm not ruling them out completely, because I imagine Bath are going to be coming pretty motivated as well. Hopefully it'll be a good game. And if you are at Twickenham and you spot Rory, make sure you go over and say hello to him. Don't punch him. Don't say anything mean to him. Just go and say hello, and Rory will go give you a nice big bear hug, I'm sure.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you can say mean things to me. Don't punch me, though, because I'll, But you say mean things if you like.
There you go. You've heard it here, people. Go find him and say mean things. Okay, Rory, that's the Premiership semi-finals done. Now it's time for the Rucks Mauls and Oval Bulls awards. And this is not just the awards, this is our Team of the Year.
Yeah.
I say we start with Team of the Year, and then we follow that with the awards. What do you say, Rory?
I say yes to that. Let's
Fantastic.
do it.
So what we'll do here is we'll go position by position, and we'll say the player that we have selected for that position, and why, if we so wish. If we've picked the same player, great. If we haven't, we can just kind of either agree on one or just move on and just accept that we're not going to pick the exact same team. But we'll go for it and we'll see what similarities we have. So, Rory, who have you got in the one shirt at Loosehead, and why?
I mean, there's a few really good contenders for this. Ben Obano has had a really good season. Nicky Smith has been outstanding for Leicester. Ellis Genge has been good for Bristol. But I have gone for Bevan Rodd on this occasion, who I think has gone up another level in his set-piece work and his all-round the field work. Just been superb for Sale the whole season.
Okay, that's a fair and honest reason. Now, I've got my book out, Rory, because you know me, I like my stats. And a lot of my team is based off of stat-based opinion.
Of course.
So I've gone in the one shot. I've gone Ellis Genge, and I'll tell you why. He was number one for metres carried. He was number one for defenders beaten. He was number one for try assists. He is number two for passes made by a prop, and number two for total carries. And he's done all that whilst being number 17 for total minutes played.
I mean, it's an excellent argument. Here's one thing I'm going to say right off the bat. I appreciate your stats input. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to let you railroad me with stats the whole time, because you've got stats and I don't.
I've only put stats against the ones I know you're going to disagree with.
Yeah, fine. I mean, he was in my shortlist, and the reason I went for Bevan Rodd is Bevan's been a standout player in a Sale team that's been playing really well. I think Ellis, for me, slightly suffered on the basis of Bristol being a bit more ropey the second half of the season.
Okay.
But I suppose there's a good case to be made that actually, if anything, that's more impressive. If he's been playing that well in a team that's struggling. So I won't fight you on it. We can go with Ellis Genge.
Well, what I'll do, Roy, is that when I edit this together for the socials, what I'll do is I'm just going to maintain two different teams. I'm just going to have us having two separate teams. We don't need to agree on a team, because these are our teams of the year. It doesn't have to be one, because I think any player we're saying here is deserving of recognition, I'd say.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm going to go Bevan Rodd, but
my pick is Ellis Genge. Who's in your number two, the hooker shirt?
This was quite simple for me. It's Tom Dunn.
Okay.
I think he's just been superb for Bath all season. Jamie George's been very good. Theo Dan's been very good. Curtis Langnall's been very good in Europe in particular. But for me, Tom Dunn has just been the heartbeat of that Bath side all season. up front, and he's an absolute slab. I mean, he was a slab of granite on Friday. He's been a slab of granite all season.
Slab of granite and blood. His face at the end of that game. That was a man that threw himself around. So oddly enough, I've gone Luke Cowan-Dickie.
Okay.
I didn't put stats here because I didn't think you'd disagree with me. But he's the highest try scorer of all the hookers. He's up there with carries. He's up there with tackles made. He's up there with turnovers. He's had a very, very good season. He's been part of that Sale front row that's been dominant all season. Tom Dunn is a good pick as well. So again, both are very good picks, Rory. Let's not argue over the picks. Both these players have had great seasons.
Okay.
We're just going to outline.
And look, Luke Cowan-Dickie is a worthy inclusion. He's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom Dunn, likewise. Now, one I think we're going to be agreed on, and this won't look good if we don't agree on, in the 3 shirt, our position of knowledge and experience, the tight head prop shirt. Who is your tight head prop?
It's Thomas du Toit.
It's Thomas du Toit for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, this one, I didn't even really bother putting a shortlist together.
No.
There's honourable mentions we could talk about. Afa for Sogban, Will Stewart, Ashra Poker for sure, but Thomas du Toit is just phenomenal.
I think the commentary team on the weekend summed it up lovely. It says, they're taking Will Stewart off, one of the world-class props, one of the best props in the world, to be replaced by Thomas du Toit, the other best prop in the world. He is something else. He's just a very, 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 very good tight head prop. And I'm just glad we get to see him in our domestic competition, because surely his signature is going to be wanted elsewhere soon. So that was easy. We've both agreed on one. Okay, second row, Rory. I will put it out there. I've done a little bit of rogueness.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you both of mine. I've gone for Maro Itoje.
I've also gone Maro Itoje.
And I've gone Freddie Thomas.
I would have been okay with that as well. I would be okay. I would have been okay with that.
Who's been a revelation for Gloucester this season. Mobile, strong, great hands, scores tries. He's been really good for Gloucester. I did think about Ollie Chesham. He's had a bit of injury. Joe Batley, bit of injury.
Yeah.
Charlie Ewells, I did think about. But when it came down to it, I thought those two were the ones that came to mind as being the absolute standouts.
Okay. So let me tell you what I've done. So I've got Maro Itoje, and I've looked at the stats. And I'll just say his stats are unreal compared to any other lock. 16 turnovers, that's 10 more than any other lock in the league. He's made 100 metres more carried than any other lock in the league. And because of that, I've put Ted Hill in the other lock position.
Oh, you've fiddled it.
I've fiddled it slightly. I have fiddled it a little bit like a Bath accountant. Because, Ted Hill has played at lock. Borthwick obviously sees him as a lock. And the stats between Ted Hill and Maro Itoje were really rather similar. And they were just a level above all the other locks. So I just thought, to me, that makes most sense to kind of put those in the engine room.
Well, to throw forward slightly, I have got Ted Hill in my team.
So I thought you may do. And one of the reasons why I've done this is because I wanted to have Ted Hill in my team, but I'd already put another person in the 6 shirt.
Fair enough. Well, look, I mean, I think you've fiddled it like a Bath accountant, but I don't hate it because I believe in getting Ted Hill into a team. And if you have to do that by putting him at lock, then I think everyone, including Steve Borthwick, should do that.
I'm glad you agree. I look forward to the pelters below the line. It's fine. In your 6 shirt, Rory, and this is pretty... Well, I know your 6 shirt. Your 6 is Ted Hill, right?
Yeah, I mean, and this is obviously some Gloucester bias. Jack Clements had a brilliant season for Gloucester.
Yeah.
I think his stats his passing stats are phenomenal. He's got the passing stats of a centre.
Yeah, he's a bit of a linchpin.
Yeah, real glue player. Liebenberg at Leicester has been. I mean, he is just nails, isn't he?
Yeah.
Just absolute nails. I think you probably could have fit in. Kenningham's played a bit of 6, so you could probably have fit him in.
Ding, 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 ding. That's what I've done.
You got for Kenningham. Yeah, fair enough.
His tackle, carry, and turnover numbers are insane.
Yeah, he was in my shortlist for 7.
Yeah, he's starting to get the reputation and the recognition he probably deserves. But he generally goes quite under the radar. He's just an insane work rate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think he's had a really, really good season in a Quinn's pack that has been struggling, if we're being honest. But yeah, I wouldn't be upset to see him in a team of the year. But for my money, it's Ted Hill, just because he's just so brilliant. And you agree. You just wanted to put him in somewhere else.
Yeah. The Ted Hill in my team is doing the exact same things as the Ted Hill in your team. He's just got a different number on his back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, 7. I've come prepared with stats on this.
Okay, I think you'll need to, because I really struggle to nail this down, because there's so many good options.
Now I know what you're going to say. I know what everyone's going to say.
Oh, you've picked Pollock.
I have picked Pollock, and let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Number 3 overall in the league of all back rowers, including number 8, metres per minute played. Number 5 of all back rowers in the league for defenders beaten per carry. Number 8 of all back rowers in tackle success. Number 2 for metres per carry. And number 3 overall for metres carried. Bearing all that in mind, he has played, on average, about 300 to 400 less minutes in the league than all the other names that you're going to say.
I can't believe you picked Pollock.
I had to put one Saint player in there.
Yeah, I can't believe it. So I picked Pollock.
I can't believe I came armed with an argument and you've agreed with me.
Yeah. Do you know why I did it in the end?
Vibes. Pure vibes. Stats and vibes sometimes agree.
In my list, okay, so I mean, Kenningham was one of them. Will Evans. I even thought about Gordon up at Newcastle.
Yeah,
who I think has just been great.
Yeah.
Either Curry could have been in there.
Yeah.
Fitzhardin.
Yeah.
Was right up there for me. Lewis Ludlow's had a great season for Gloucester.
Yeah. Gonzalez.
Gonzalez.
I can't believe I've overlooked Gonzalez, but I have.
Gonzalez, Benel.
Yeah.
Loads of really, really good options. And then I went, God, all the 7s in the league are brilliant. So I'm just going to pick Pollock because he's the funniest one.
I'm glad we agreed. Number 8.
Tom Willis,
yeah. So, although I think towards the end of the season, not quite as imperious as he was at the start of the year, I still think he has been the out-and-out best 8 in the league. Little shout-out for Callum Chick.
Callum Chick was in my shortlist. Ruan Ackham was in my shortlist.
Yeah.
John-Luc Dupree.
Yeah.
I think he's had a really, really good year for Sale.
Barbary.
Barbry's been good for Bath. Barbary lost out because he was switched so often with Coetzee in the games. So that's where he slightly went.
Who, oddly enough, was generally around the same ballpark as Pollock for the per minute and like the metrics that I do that are based on how many minutes you play. He's really up there. Like, he is so underrated. Like,
really, really effective player. I mean, lots of good. I mean, you could have even gone. Burnell's played enough at 8 to give him a shout there.
Yeah,
but
also
for me, the eye test for me just tells me Tom Willis is the best 8 in the league.
Yeah. He is top of most of the metrics in terms of carries. Actually, one I completely forgot. Ollie Cracknell as well is one to give kudos to. He's had an amazing season. Like him, Cracknell and Willis have been like chopping and changing the carries stat leader. I think it's just that Willis's ability to beat the defender and just do that bit of extra stuff that kind of sets him apart. Also, Freddie Lockwood's one that's emerged towards the end of the season for Newcastle as well.
Yes, yeah, been really good.
One. But yeah,
I
Tom
think
Willis.
The one that's where it slightly sways it. Well, it's not where it slightly sways it, but one of the reasons why it sways it to me for Tom Willis is I forget who they were playing against. I think it was at the StoneX. He gets passed the ball out wide, and he's got no right to score a try, and he sort of swerves his hips like classic Bill Beaumont-esque, Dean Richards-esque, just swishes round the covering defender and sprints in from about 25 metres. And I think none of the other number 8s who are his sort of size and depth can do that. He's the only one who can do that as well.
Yeah.
And that's the difference maker. That try.
Yeah, I completely agree. Moving into the backs, I think we might have a lot of agreement here, if I'm honest, Rory, knowing how we've talked about the backs in the past. Number 9,
So I realise I'm going to get pelters probably from Bath fans for not picking Ben Spencer. But for me, the best number 9 in the league this season has been Thomas Williams.
I agree.
Just an absolute difference maker.
I agree. I think he's been the signing of the season. I think he has been fundamental in the turnaround in the way Gloucester play. So yeah, I'm absolutely fine with Thomas Williams. Ben Spencer, obviously, in with a shout. Harry Randall, maybe in with a shout, the way he suits the Bristol play, although probably not to the same extent. Van Portfleet's had a kind of late charge, potentially.
Yeah.
But for me, Thomas Williams, stand out for me.
Just been good. Been good in virtually every game this season.
Yeah. So good. So yeah, not much debate required around the 9 shirt.
No.
10 shirt.
I so wanted to put George Ford in this because of how good he's been since the turn of the year. But you have to recognise that Finn Russell's been the best 10 all season.
Oh, Rory, you're scared of these Bar fans.
Let them get to you. They told me with their biting comments on Facebook.
Well, I'm willing to take the comments this time, Rory, because I'm saying George Ford is my 10 of the season. How many times has Finn Russell been man of the match?
I mean, you're the one with the stats. You know, you're the only one who can tell us these things.
Zilcho times. George Ford is...
How many times has Finn Russell been brilliant? Probably about 19 times this season.
Hey.
You know.
This is why I said at the start we're having separate teams, because for me, George Ford has been much more influential as an individual to the outcome of games than Finn Russell has been, because I think Finn Russell has a much more of an armchair.
Before you keep shaming me, I love George Ford, but I think Finn Russell's been good. George Ford's been really good since he came up from injury at the turn of the year. Finn Russell has been good from week 1.
Yes, and he was top of the point scoring. Can't take that away from him. And obviously he's been really good because he's steered Bath to a very dominant season. So I'm not saying your pick is wrong, Rory. I'm just saying I didn't pick him.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Centres. 12.
12 for me had to be Seb Atkinson.
I'm in agreement. Seb Atkinson for me as well. Let's just get past all. Basically, there's been 2 centres in the league who have been out and out above all the other centres, and they are my 12 and 13.
Ooh, okay, I wonder if we agree at 13. I went Rob de Preer.
I take back what I was about to do then. I was just going to move us along nicely because I assumed we both gone Seb Atkinson and Bernhard Janci van Rensburg.
Yeah, maybe I should have gone for him.
Rob de Preer is not a bad shout. That stat that he's played every minute of the season is pretty impressive.
For the last 4 years.
For like the last 4 years. And he does have a lot of very good stuff on his highlight reel. I just think Van Rensburg's just, like, for his attack and his defence, it's unreal. Whereas Dupree is very good at both as well. I just think Van Rensburg's probably just got that little bit. Maybe it's the mullet, I don't know. And for a guy that's so vibes-based, I'm surprised you've overlooked the mullet.
If anything, it's too much vibe. I'm starting to think maybe I made a mistake. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with Rob de Preer because
I can fix it in the edit.
No. I'm sticking with it because I think his consistency in the centres for sale this season has been a large part of their success. I think his partnership with Marzi White's been really good. I think he really helps them. I think he really sort of elevates that back line. Him as part of him and George Ford, like his move to 13 has been a massive elevation. And Rensburg, I think, has been brilliant. But the problem with my slight problem with picking Van Rensburg is some of the way that the Bristol games have just turned out is a lot of Bristol players can sort of not go missing, but they sort of disappear for large parts of the game, even someone as good as Van Rensburg, because the games are so mental. So I don't always get quite that same sense. I think that's a fairly weak argument, I suppose. But ultimately what it is I thought Rob de Preer, and I'm sticking with it.
Rob de Preer was the only other name I thought about, to be fair to you. So you've done a very good, impassioned speech to defend your position, and I congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to the 2 wingers. We'll do both of them just in case we've picked them in opposite wings.
Yeah, so I've gone for Hassel Collins, and I really think I should have. I know I should probably have picked Tommy Freeman, but I haven't.
If it helps, I haven't either.
I've picked Christian Wade.
Interesting. That's all I'll say.
He's scored some phenomenal tries.
He's scored some lovely tries, yeah.
On the base, the only other thing I thought was, can I just fit in Ibitoy on the other wing? But I thought, I'm going to play this absolutely dead straight. Collins and Ibitoy both play left wing. I've got to pick a singular left winger. I think Collins has been overall the better one for the whole season. Who's been the best right winger? Radwan's been very good since his move.
He's scored some lovely tries, Rory.
He has scored some lovely tries. Ravouvou has been good all season. Thoukakota has been very good. Iskro, Tom Roebuck, and then I thought, I don't care. It's my choice, and I wanted to put Christian Wade there.
Well, now I'm regretting making this decision about maintaining both of our teams. So I agree on Ollie Hassel-Collins. He is my left winger. And I've got stats. Obviously, he's a top try scorer. He's made the most line breaks. He's the number 3 tackler of all the wingers. And he's number 7 of tackle success. So he's got that. He's got both sides of his game, which is what really cemented him in that shirt for me. 14 shirt for me. Again, stats based. I've gone Ravouvou. Now, number 1 for meters made. Number 2 for tries scored. Now, bear in mind, he's done that where he's played nearly 500 minutes, less than Ollie Hassel-Collins.
Yeah.
And for many of those minutes, he was in the centres.
Yep. Which is where he lost that shirt to me, because he's not a pure winger, and that's why I'm justifying the Christian Wade.
Well, based on this weekend's performance, I'm picking Ravouvou.
To be fair, I picked this team before the weekend, and I might not have picked Christian Wade on the basis of it, but I decided to
back yourself. Christian Wade's had a lovely little, nice little bit of moment in the rugby union before he goes back to rugby league and tries another sport. He's picked up another 11 tries. I tipped him to be a top try scorer at the start of the season. I feel that's not a bad shout from me because he's not far from it.
No, I mean let's be fair. Christian Wade is not a terrible shout for being up in that conversation, because he's very good.
No, it's not.
And he's got some pretty spectacular tries as well. I would probably concede that this is one where I might have let biases get the better of me.
And to think I didn't put Tommy Freeman, who, let's face it, absolute legend. But I've avoided my biases, maybe minus Pollock. But you agreed with me on that one, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Fullback, 15 shirt. I have a feeling I know where you've gone with this, if I'm honest. But,
yeah. Well, to be fair, I also think it's the right choice. But it's, for
Joe
me, he was my second choice, certainly.
Oh, okay.
Santi Carreras.
So he was my second choice.
Yeah. It was a real toss-up between those two, to be fair, for me. But in the end, what the difference for me was, and I'm not a statistician, and I don't know the stats on this. I'm sure you'll be able to tell me. But I was just trying to think on the memory test, who's been involved in more tries and more amazing moments for me this season? And Santi has been pretty central to a lot of Gloucester's tries, and usually their best ones.
So, well, if you want the stats, he scored 6, or maybe I've made a mistake, 12 try assists, which is, in the grand scheme of things, he's second only to Finn Russell for try assists.
Okay, so I'm feeling very justified right now.
Carpenter.
What's the old saying? Lies, damn lies and statistics.
Top meter maker, Carpenter, has scored 4, assisted 6. So, on your measure and your reasoning, completely valid. And one that I would be willing to concede on. If we were being forced to make a decision on one player, I would probably be very easily conceding to Carreras here, I think. But I'm sticking with Carpenter because I really love Joe Carpenter and what he's about.
I do, and I hope he gets a bit of a shot at English shirt this summer.
Yeah. Well, listener, so what I'm going to do, listener, I'm going to make a YouTube video where I'm going to put this nice little clip together, and I'll put our teams next to each other, and you will listen to this conversation in isolation. So go find us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and I'll put a nice little feature-length video on there of this team. But now, Rory, we move away from team selection, and we're going to go stand at the podium, and we're going to put some awards out there. There's 4 awards on the line. There's the let me get the correct full title of the first award. It is the DPRFR award for outstanding propery. That's our first category, Rory. Do you have any nominees to present to the board?
Yeah, I think there's a few options here. I think Thomas Dutoy just for generally being brilliant all season. Absolute nominee. Dan Cole for a swan song and a legendary career.
Yeah.
But my pitch for this is a very specific one, but it's the performance of Murray McCallum for Newcastle versus Saints with two of the best try involvements of a prop I've ever seen, let alone twice in one game.
Interesting, very interesting. So I have a similar list of nominations. So I have Thomas Dutoy for his excellence, Dan Cole for his career. I also had Asher Poku Fajor for some line breaks that no prop should ever be making, and I had Murray McCallum for some of his sidestepping in that Saints game.
Yeah.
So basically, my short list is exactly the same as yours. In terms of settling a winner,
I really want to give it to Murray McCallum.
Murray McCallum, you are the winner for the DPRFR's award for outstanding propery. Congratulations, Murray. That performance was quite something, and it will live long in the memories of all who live and breathe DPRFR. And I don't think there's a greater honour out there, if I'm honest.
I don't think so. Just to confirm, it doesn't come with a trophy or a cash prize.
Yes, that's very important. Actually, to clarify, there is no physical, monetary, or any other form of kind of resemblance of what this award actually means. It is pure podcast wordage, and that's it.
Yeah. You just get praise from a podcast, so congratulations.
It's worth it for the clips. Okay, next award, Rory, is, and I've renamed it just to be a bit nicer. It's the Bums Off Seats Award, and this is for moments that got your bums off your seat.
Yeah, this was a fun one to think of, actually. What were the moments when I was just absolutely gripped? There was the Aaron Reid length of the field try.
Yes, that's a good one.
Henry Pollock scoring against Sale, where he bounces Tom Curry, chips and chases.
Yeah, the chip and chase, yeah.
And Thomas Williams' basketball offload to Seb Atkinson against Bristol.
Those are three good nominees. The only other nominee that I have to add, because I had a similar list, was the Ravouvou behind the back falling pass assist.
Oh, that was a good one.
So those are the this is a tricky one. I was going to... What's that, sorry?
Which one comes to mind to you? First thought, best thought?
So the first one I wrote down was the Ravouvou behind the back falling assist. Was the first one that came to mind. The second one that came to mind was the Henry Pollock chip and chase. But I kind of conceded that was perhaps from a saintly bias.
But it did stick in my mind. I'm trying to think, what hadn't I seen done before? Where I just went, what was that? And the basketball offload was the one where I went, a no-look basketball offload. I just don't remember seeing it done like that in a game. So again, this is I'm at risk of Gloucester bias. And
my only counter to that was that offload more or less impressive than the Ravouvou behind the back whilst being tackled assist?
I can't deny that the Ravouvou assist is right up there. I probably erred by not picking Ravouvou my team of the season. Let me not spurn him twice. I'm happy to give this one to Ravouvou.
Calaveti Ravouvou, you are the winner of the Bums Off Seats Award on the Ruxmall's Overballs podcast. Again, reminder, it comes with no monetary or physical value, and this is just for a bit of fun. But to all the nominees, congratulations on some really exciting moments in this league, and there'll be a whole load of others that are really worthy of nomination. Thirdly, Most Improved Player Award. So this one's an interesting one. This one's not necessarily the names that jump out at you.
No, this is very subjective, and I wanted to kind of narrow this down. But what I'm trying to think of as players, what are the players that I think are genuinely much better this season than they were last season, rather than ones that may be as good but just maybe more prominent, which is a bit of a nuance.
I think that's an important distinction. Going off of some of the people that have been mentioned to me in comments, very important distinction that this is about improved based on previous seasons, and that nuance is important.
Yeah.
Your first nominee.
Well, so the ones that came to mind were Ibitoy,
Interesting.
Seb Atkinson,
I like it.
Marzi White,
Yeah.
obviously Henry Pollock.
Okay. Yeah. I suppose. Yeah. By that.
But that one in the sense of just being more prominent, and Tommy Freeman,
Tommy Freeman.
who's gone from being a very good winger to genuinely outstanding world-class winger in my mind.
Okay. Yeah. I suppose that counts as improvement, doesn't it?
He's gone from very good to very, very, very good.
Okay. So I only wrote down 2 names for this, and neither of those 2 were
Hit me.
said. So this is going to be a hard one to decide on.
Hit me.
Aaron Reid,
Yeah.
Paul Brown-Bampo.
Ooh, that is an interesting one.
And the only reason I really thought about Paul Brown-Bampo is his has just been, within this season alone, it's been a noticeable improvement.
Yeah. Ooh, that's interesting. I hadn't considered him. I didn't consider any Chiefs players for any awards. Didn't even cross my mind. I think I'd forgotten they were there. Ooh, I like that.
So if I was to whistle it down to 2, I'd whistle it down to Seb Atkinson or Paul Brown-Bampo.
Yeah. So I would say your trajectory there is Paul Brown-Bampo going from a raw player picked from, I was going to say relative obscurity. That sounds hard, but that doesn't sound like a nice thing to say. But
Picked up from
unless you
Super
watch
Bucks
Bucks
rugby. Yeah.
Yeah. And was raw in his first couple of games, has gone from that to, by the end of the season, looking like a very good Premiership level winger.
Yeah.
Seb Atkinson's gone from a very promising youngster to a really well-established, effective, potential international centre.
Yes, and I'd argue he's from watching him play, I'd say he's an international standard centre now, personally.
Yeah. Let's not forget that Bronco time.
Let's not forget that Bronco time at all.
It's a factor.
It is a factor. So when you put that in perspective,
for me, it's then
put that in perspective because I think the starting point's relatively similar in terms of kind of academy product, kind of getting into first team rugby to then being where Seb Atkinson is. I think Paul Brown-Bampo's a similar starting point, perhaps a little bit behind, but maybe hasn't quite got as far as Seb Atkinson has done in development terms.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to give it to Seb Atkinson.
Seb Atkinson.
Seb Atkinson,
Most improved
congratulations. Most improved player, which is usually the award that no one wants to win at the end of the season because it usually means you're the crap one.
We thought you were rubbish and you weren't. That's not what we thought.
Yeah.
We thought you were good, and now we think you're very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and again, just a quick reminder for you, Seb, there is no monetary or physical value for this award. Please enjoy the
Emotional value.
The emotional value, yes. And the final award is the Ruxmalls and Overballs Character of the Year. So these are for moments or players who've really brought characterful moments to the sport that we would like to encourage others to do the same and bring their character and bring their personality. Rory, hit me with your nominees.
Ellis Genge is a character, and I think this year has been even more forthcoming with his opinions, and I love it because I think he talks a lot of sense, and he's always good for an angle on things. Afolabi for Sogban, but purely for that moment where he waved off Ellis Genge.
Yeah.
Just that in and of itself was just a lot of fun, and I hope he continues in that vein. Jamal Ford Robinson, just for being a total character and always being a character.
Yeah.
Not a player, but a DOR, Steve Diamond. He's a character of the game.
He's a character of the game for sure. Yeah. I'll take that.
Sipping pints in the stands when he's banned. But it's character of the year. There's only one man you can really nominate for a character of the year, and it's Henry Pollock, isn't it?
He's kind of... I'm not going to say he single-handedly changed the sport by himself. No. But what he has done...
Don't say that. He'll get pelted if you say that.
So I'm not saying that, even though I did just say those words. What I am saying is I think he's made it much more likely that we're going to see more characters coming through.
I think he's moved the conversation on a lot this season about what a rugby player is allowed to be in the league. And I think the old stakeholders of the game will now have to recognise that they need to let players be themselves. I think the new stakeholders of the game who want to see it grow recognise that and are encouraging it, and we're starting to see it get encouraged in other players. But you have to say that he's moved that in, and let's be fair, in England, which is obviously I'm not saying there's no characters who've changed the game from other countries, because that's saying a lot, and there are players in other countries who've done a lot to move this conversation on. But for English specific players, Henry Pollock has absolutely moved the dial on what a rugby personality is allowed to be in England. And I think that's undeniable at this point, regardless of what you think about it. We know from our comments that not everyone's in favour of everything Henry Pollock does, but
you can't deny that part.
The sheer fact that he draws that kind of reaction is enough in itself to say he's a character of the game. He
is our character of the year. I had a similar list to you. I particularly liked the Afa Fosogbon wave to Ellis Genge. I thought that was a really nice, characterful moment. But Pollock, for just his antics all year and just like this circus that now kind of goes around with him, and like you can't deny that. I think it's been a real positive for the game. So yeah, easy decision. And once again, Henry, I know we talk about you a lot, but you've kind of earned it. But you haven't earned a monetary or physical representation for this award. It is purely words. Enjoy, Henry.
Our words are worthless.
Exactly. And that brings the award night to a close, Rory. How'd you feel?
Very enjoyable. I look forward to next year. I loved it.
Yeah. How do you feel the Premiership coming to a close? Summer of rugby ahead of us. Has it been a good year?
Do you know what? I think when we started this podcast at the start of this year, literally at the start of 2025, so we haven't even been going for the whole season, there was a real dark cloud around English rugby and where the game was going. And a lot of our early podcasts had to talk a lot about problems at the RFU, problems at the WRU, problems with things like Netflix not renewing for the Six Nations documentary. All these kind of things that felt like the game was
in decline,
crumbling at the seams a little bit. Actually, now that we're at the end of the season and I can look at it in the round, I feel like as a product, the Premiership has moved on this season and looks all the better now, and hopefully that continues. I think Northampton making the final of Europe has actually helped that conversation, and it's helped everyone realise that there's quality in the league. But the fact that we could go into the last round of the season with 5 teams still trying to compete for 3 playoff spots. The fact of the number of young players that have come through and started to break through. Obviously, Henry Pollock, top of the charts, but loads of really good young players that have started coming through. The quality of the rugby has been fantastic. You can split hairs around whether the game's competitive enough, or whether it's all a bit too attack and not enough defence, all that kind of stuff. But it's been entertaining all the way through, and for me, it's been one of the best league seasons I've watched in a long, long time. Yeah. Couldn't disagree, and that's me saying someone who last year was supporting the team that won it. I think this year's been phenomenal, and I'm already excited for next season. And like the idea of a future podcast where we're going to have an inevitable debate about predictions for the next season. Right now, if I sit and try and think about next season, it is so hard to call, because there's so many variables that you're going to get thrown into the stirring pot for next season alone. It makes me even more excited for next year. So I just think, how good's next year going to be when this year's been as good as it has been? I can't wait.
I
already can't wait for next season.
Yeah, I can't wait for next season. But we've got some Lions tours, some England tours, some under-20s Rugby World Cup. There's the Women's World Cup to come. There's a big summer of rugby to go, so let's not get too excited. But Gallagher Premiership's nearly done. We'll do next week. We'll talk about the final. Then obviously we turn our attention to the summer of rugby. But for this week, Rory, do you have any final words? Because we're at the end of the podcast.
If you see me at the final, buy me a drink or plant a kiss on me.
There we go, people. The offer is out there. Rory is up for smooches and hooches. I think that's a drink. So yeah, absolutely. We've been Rugsballs and Ovalballs. Hope you've enjoyed listening. We'll be back soon.